Alright, welcome back to Game 10 of Lucid's 2022 tournament, where we are playing Phlegra. It was turn 27. I'm recording this after the fact, though I have forgotten a lot, so hopefully I'll have no spoilers here for you guys. Let's see, we finished research and alteration, level 5. Yeah, level 6 is really what we want, though level 5 definitely has some useful things for us. An extremely lucky turn for us in terms of site searching. We find 4 magic sites in this forest. So it looks like probably a fire, air, fire, and then more air. So fire and air, both useful gem types for us, though, again, still no earth. Perhaps this other site that we found? No, not earth, also fire. Still, you can hardly complain about a turn like that in the late age, especially. Utgard proclaims another shaman. Another prophet. So that's not necessarily a problem. Because it's really the return of their god that we're most concerned about. We catch a couple battles between Gath and Marignon, and then we have a couple battles in our war against Utgard. So we'll take it from the top. So let's see here. Yeah, one of these flagellant raiding groups. A few friars here leading it looks like. And not sure what they're up against. Some province defense, actually like some investment in Woodsman PD, which might actually work out here. Yeah, the blood vengeance is going to be a big problem, but you know, we've talked before, like flagellants, they're pretty high attrition rating. Still, this works out pretty well for Marignon. Woodsmen are pretty awful. But Gath is raiding back, so let's see what they're using. I think we've seen, no, this is not a raiding group I feel like we've seen before. This looks like it's one of their heroes, I'm guessing, and he is immortal, which probably explains, you know, why they've sent out a giant in robes. Actual literal robes in this case, which apparently these robes give a little more armor than the other robes that often aren't even listed, but there is a defense here, so a little bit of skelly spam, completely reasonable to try to raid with, particularly because an immortal unit, you're going to get it back, but definitely not going to work out against this level of stuff. Also some devils here, it looks like, from Marignon, so they're clearly doing some blood hunting already, which makes sense. Since late age, Marignon is a pretty significant blood power, so that's something they want to get into, I think, sooner rather than later. The rest of the nation is apparently somewhat underwhelming, and we run into a ton of province defense here, which is also barbarian province defense, so I was thinking this raid probably would work out, but this is definitely not going to work out. Well, I don't know about definitely, but yeah, there's way too much stuff here. So we lose this raiding group. That is somewhat painful. Yeah, it's almost a complete wipe. We lose the commander as well, which is unfortunate because of the whole taskmaster situation. So, you know, we need fort turns for these guys. It's kind of a tough position. I do feel, having played late age Phlegra now, it's probably worthwhile to just have a palisade somewhere that can pop these guys out, and you know, you don't need to bother upgrading it or providing a lab there. Which is probably something that I don't do enough. I just, you know, every time I spend the money to invest in a palisade, it just was like, well, let's get some mages out of here. Which is not a bad tendency, but yeah, for some nations, like, they really do want their national commanders. So we'll have to think about what we're going to do about this. This is definitely enough province defense that we'll have to send in something specific. Perhaps our pretender, though, a vine shield would probably be worthwhile. 70 barbarians is pretty concerning. Even for our pretenders, so we'll see, you know, what we end up doing about that. And then we get attacked by Utgard in location. Yeah, this is in the south where we're less prepared. A small raiding group, looks like some independent crossbows and a couple mages. Okay, so this looks like it's probably swarm raiding with, you know, maybe some bodyguards or maybe just the archers. Yeah, if you have archers on bodyguard, they don't actually shoot, so those are not bodyguards. We have a little bit of province defense here, but definitely not enough to turn around the bugs. Oh, that's interesting. These ladies retreat off. I'm pretty sure the bugs from swarm are magic beings. Yeah, so this is not going to work. These bugs are actually probably just going to disintegrate. Now, that said, this amount of crossbowmen, like, maybe, but, you know, whereas before I thought it was like, okay, we're definitely going to lose this. Now it's a little more up in the air, but it's probably still enough crossbowmen. Maybe not. Like, we'll see. Yeah, no, it looks like these crossbowmen are able to come away with it, so kind of an odd swarm raid. But it does work out for Utgard, and they take that province. We definitely have stuff nearby, so we'll probably just retake this as we move out. Then we have a bunch of unexpected events. I'm sure these are going to be great. Forest has grown wild. We lose some income and resources, which is actually, the resources are almost worse considering our situation, but it's not the end of the world. Yeah, yellow mold, of course. Brigands, another classic, so some unrest, though this doesn't look like a particularly valuable province. Hey, someone else's scales must have snuck in. We get an extra 432 gold from our great tax collection, and then immediately counterbalance that with a plague that kills 1,800 population, which, as far as plagues go, actually isn't that bad, but, plagues are one of the worst events that you can get, so this is not fantastic, though it is hitting a swamp, and so it's probably not a very valuable province anyway. So as far as where a plague can happen, it's a good situation. And then we lose 2 scouts, unfortunately. This is actually somewhat significant. Let's take a look and see if there's any blessing. This is that big group of Utgard Sacreds in the south. Yeah, look at all these guys all patrolling. So there is a blessing going off, and we can see that the Pretender is still down. Or rather, the Pretender's still dead and the Bless is still down. So this is just the non-incarnate part of their Bless. So that's good news and good information. And particularly if they, continue to patrol. Unfortunately, we're a pretty slow map move nation, so we won't be able to ambush this in all likelihood. With a multi-province move, we'll have to move next to the fort, and it'll be pretty obvious what we're doing. So Utgard will have the opportunity to reverse this somewhat questionable patrol. But yeah, it is interesting. Maybe we won't have to dig these sacreds out of a fort like I was expecting. And then, of course, Michelin just doing a good job of patrolling with garbage, basically telling us nothing, though somehow, some of their own province defense killed some of their patrol chaff, but not a big deal. Then we complete a fortress and a palisade, and I'll catch you guys after the jump. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. We're going to walk right into a trap. So, yeah, we'll see about this move. Considering the giant province defense dump that we walked into over here with our raiders, I think that there's no reason that there wouldn't be an equally, if not larger, province defense dump here. So, attacking into that is not thrilling. On the other hand, the longer we wait, the more likely it is, definitely the Bless will come back online. It's worst case scenario, it's barbarian province defense again. The god wakes up, and that happens early in the turn, and so we end up facing the Bless and a huge province defense dump and get completely crushed, which is entirely possible, depending on how the god revive mechanics work. In terms of what we're sending in, we've seen this before. It's like, I think it's 190 units, so I think numbers-wise, there's 112 units here. You figure probably roughly similar province defense dump in the other location, and then, the roughly 60 units here. So, unit for unit, the army size is going to be about equal. Obviously, the Gam herdings, even without the full Bless, are better than anything that we have. I do think we have more mage support. We do see one Norna coming up, so Utgard might have a little bit of mage support here, but otherwise no mage support. Our mage support is somewhat minor, right? So we're going to have flaming arrows, and we're going to make some fire elementals. We also do have Incinerate available, but with this number of mages, I don't think we're really going to be able to get out enough Incinerates to make a huge difference. But the number of crossbowmen that we have with flaming arrows is going to be pretty dangerous. So, I don't know. I think this is a 50-50 shot. I'm hoping that even if we lose, we end up killing quite a few Gam herdings. And I really think that, while we do have production issues, thanks to, some questionable fort placement, we can definitely replace this army more cheaply and more quickly than Utgard can replace their Gam herdings. So as long as we deal some damage, losing the army is not the end of the world. And in the event that we do lose the army, I think the most likely thing is that Utgard moves towards our throne, and we already have quite a bit of province defense here because we want to keep the palisade up, and then we're also going to have our Pretender here, right? So we can rely on province defense, our Pretender, and then we're also bringing up a good chunk of mages here, so along with a few Mouflon reinforcements. I think we have some other, there's a little bit of crossbowmen, so we'll continue filtering troops up in this direction. So we'll have a little bit in the way of troops, but a significant amount of mages here. And behind the province defense, we can also probably move in the witches. The witches are relatively fast because they're sacred, and they get our larger bless. They move faster, so I think the witches can actually make it to this province in one move, possibly. Actually, maybe not. They have to go around these swamps. Hang on, let's look. Okay, yeah, so the witches definitely can. So we should have at least like one witch available. This one is headed out somewhere else, probably down here to support us in the south, which we'll talk about in a second. But we can make some bugs, and make them lucky. We do have Alteration 6 now, so even if we end up losing this battle catastrophically, we will have like some defenses, and in some ways it might encourage Utgard, into falling into one of our traps. We are forging some more gear for our Pretender. We're going to forge a Thistle Mace so we can offload nature forging onto our witches. And then our witches are doing some nature forging for us. Somewhere there's a mistletoe garland, being made, because our Pretender can only wear crowns. So this just gives some poison resistance, and luck is the main thing. And then we're also forging a Frostbrand somewhere, and then the plan is to also forge a Vine Shield, and then we'll probably use our Pretender to clear this giant province defense dump between the Petrification and the Vine Shield and the Fear and everything. I think she'll be pretty safe, even against that giant stack of Barbarians. And then we can pretty much use our Pretender to clean out any major province defense dumps that aren't near forts, right? We do have to be careful about ambushes where there's a big province defense dump near a fort that a bunch of mages could move out to protect. So we do still need to be somewhat careful with our Pretender, but for situations like this where it's going to be very difficult for Utgard to reinforce this, we can clean it out with our Pretender relatively easily. So those are the major happenings. We are also attacking in the south, not really expecting a lot of resistance here. We have a significantly smaller force, a good amount of Mouflons, some infantry. We are bringing up some crossbowmen. This raiding group is a lot less dangerous because the mages retreated, right? We can see that there's one here. The other one probably went to the fort. So there won't be any swarm support if, they decide to carry forward. We have standard amount of province defense here, but we're bringing up our crossbowmen. They just can't make the move, so they'll help defend this province in the meantime. And then we did a small province defense dump here. It's a pretty awful PD type, especially for the late age, but like 10 crossbowmen. I do think it's worth it. We don't really have anything that we can spare troop-wise, so I think there's a decent chance that this will turn around if Utgard decides to attack forward with those 10 crossbowmen. It's also a pretty good chance they'll just withdraw to the fort. We're not really planning on taking this fort. I know that Vedheim has their eye on it, but we'll see how things go. Mictlan did end their non-aggression pact with Vedheim, so Vedheim's not going to be able to fully commit to this war. And with Marignon and Gath pretty well occupied, right? We can see, here's Gath under siege from Marignon. This does look like it's more or less going in Marignon's favor. I don't know. It's hard to say. Gath, probably has at least some of the territory up in this direction, and they have at least one fort unlocked. But anytime you have your capital under siege, that's not great. So hopefully Marignon finishes this relatively quickly, because like I said, I think Gath is probably somewhat well disposed to Utgard, and then also, as long as these two are fighting, they're not going to be interested in attacking Utgard, and it's unlikely that we're going to be able to take out Utgard in a 1v1. They are significantly larger than us, so yeah, we'll see how it goes. This is not really the war that I was planning on, but it's just sort of where we ended up. It's really mostly driven by the fact that I don't think that Utgard is gonna respect our integrity long term. Right? They had offered a few provinces when they lost their bless, but I just, I think once the Vedheim was gone, I think they would have been interested in us. And of course, we're also interested, at the end of the day, whether or not we take Utgard's capital, that's not really the goal. We're most interested in Xibalba. Now, of course, we're going to need to fight Vedheim for that, but I do think that Utgard is dangerous enough, right? Their plan, they keep asking, it's like, hey, will you leave us alone while we kill Vedheim? Well, Vedheim holds Xibalba. And since they said they weren't planning on taking much of Vedheim's territory, leaving most of it for Mictlan, I'm assuming they're talking about Vedheim's core lands, which would make sense, right? Because Mictlan has a much larger border with Vedheim. So, what's the land that Utgard is going to take? We already know, right? They already tried to take it. It's Xibalba. So this is where we were planning on going anyway. And so, yeah, I just think that Utgard is the more dangerous power, so that's why we're fighting them first with Vedheim. And then since Vedheim is going to be getting attacked by Mictlan, once we handle Utgard, because of course the war will go well, then we can focus on, taking Xibalba's land from Vedheim. It is looking for the moment that we are, I don't know about it going to be in a 1v1. Obviously, Vedheim is still going to be fighting Utgard, but of course, they are going to be busy with Miklin. However, Atlantis is about to be finished with Raga, and, they are not otherwise engaged. Now, Ulm is also about to be finished with Kalem, probably. We do see a pretty large Kalian force here, so it is looking like, the fort here is cracked. This is Kalem's capital, so there's going to be a final battle here, but, considering how everything has gone, I think it's probably going to go in Ulm's favor, though you never really know with these things. And then once this war finishes, as far as I know, Ulm is, also unoccupied, and there's a lot of different ways they could go. I think it's pretty unlikely that they attack us, but you never know, right? We're about to lose a large army, and Ulm are our only other neighbor that we don't have a non-aggression pact with, so we'll just have to keep an eye on that. But they could also potentially attack Atlantis, which would be unfortunate for us, since, that would keep Atlantis occupied. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways that Ulm could go. They may also just want to hang out and research and build up. I know that Ulm is a pretty strong blood nation, so, they're going to want to get their blood hunting online, their blood research online. In terms of our recruitment, some Mouflon at home, and then I think otherwise largely crossbowmen. Oh, actually, yeah, right, these guys. These are not intended for combat. We really do need, I've been talking about a patrol group, right? We have unrest here. We have a lot of unrest in the capital. I mean, granted, our population is way down, but we could still increase this income significantly. So anyway, yeah, these guys they're cheap, they're fine, they work as patrollers, so we're gonna recruit a patrol group here. I think otherwise, probably, yeah, mostly still crossbowmen. We'll probably want to switch over to our infantry relatively soon, or maybe just only Mouflon, because we are starting to get to the point where, enchantment 6, obviously, like, we have a 6, so I'm sure other people are there or farther, or at least about to be there, and at that point you can get Arrow Fend, or, like, I'm sure people have Storm. Basically, the efficacy of missiles is, about to drop off a cliff. Luckily, I don't think Utgard has any air, unless they've picked some up from a throne, which is possible. Actually, they have not claimed a throne yet, so that's not possible, but they might have found some independence. So it's unlikely that Utgard has much air, which is the main path that messes up missile fire. So, at least for this current war, our crossbows should do okay, and, we'll never phase them out completely, but we are going to want to stop relying on them so much pretty soon. Research-wise, we are trying to finish out Alteration 6. That'll take us a little while. You can see our research has dropped significantly as we are starting to mobilize a lot more mages, so hopefully getting more of these forts up and being able to pop more mages out will, help raise this back up. The rest of it is kind of speculative, and we probably will cut the evocation in favor of going up to enchantment 6. I'd kind of forgotten about my Sow Dragon Teeth plan. We do want both of these things, but I think enchantment 6 is going to be more important to get up, so we'll focus on that first, and then probably something like this after it. So yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 27.